it's not going.
So for today's video is a slightly requested video that is going to be a basic guide on how to play each individual character in Overwatch. It's going to be a basic overview of abilities, how they work in team comp. It's not going to be very in-depth and comprehensive, but it's not going to be baby's first Overwatch. I'm going to be going in order of characters from left to right. So if you're interested in a specific character, just wait until I switch characters. And there, because I won't have a timestamp. So the first character obviously is going to be D.Va. Yes, hello. Yeah, this is Retard. Retard, say hello to the viewers. Hello. So the basic understanding of D.Va is what we consider to be a dive tank. D.Va's main objective is we're gonna use this area, by the way, as our demo for the what the battlefield is. D.Va's primary objective is to get into the enemy's backline and cause damage, or to get into the enemy's frontline and cause damage. She basically does nothing but do damage. She has no real defense capabilities. This small bar that is on my screen will block some damage that's done by pressing L2, like this. And you have to manage that cooldown resource wisely. If you do, it mitigates damage you take, although certain forms of damage will go through it. At close range, she has very high-powered damage with her automatic shotguns. And in medium to long range, she has decent poke off of her micro missiles, which is her R1 ability. She does not have a lot of damage at range, and that's one of her big issues. This is one of the reasons why she's meant to be a dive tank. Your L1 is designed to get you into close range, and if you make contact with enemies, you will bump them. Any form of a crowd control ability that manipulates an opponent's movement is called a boop as well. So if you've heard the term boop, this is a boop if it knocks them off the map. I'm mostly just trying to generate my ult here and take damage. So this is D.Va's basic kit. Damage, thrust, micro missiles, defense matrix. This is the gist of D.Va's kit. I need to now take some damage. D.Va doesn't seem like that much of a tank. However, D.Va does have one thing going for her that gives her kind of a second life. I have to take damage first. When D.Va's mech is going to be die, she gets ejected from the suit. This is known as, now you are in Baby D.Va form. In Baby D.Va form, all you can do is fire a pistol and move around. And this is to generate your ult charge. Once you generate your ult back, you can then use your ult. D.Va's ult is very easy to use as well. All you have to do is activate your thruster and ult, and it kills them. It's pretty much a get out of jail free card. And then a new feature as well that I do want to show off a little bit here. This is something that they're going to be hopefully putting into the game, is that D.Va's call mech will do damage to enemies. And right now it only does 50 damage, but we're hoping it's going to do 250 damage. D.Va's primary objective is her mobility. Her primary objective should be to use her superior mobility to get around the battlefield and create kills and opportunities where other DPS characters and other support characters can't afford to outduel her because of her high health pool. Another trick with D.Va as well that is important to manage is that D.Va is easily to very rapidly... That's a boop kill right there. D.Va, when you get D.Va low health, like if you get her, she can just randomly ult at any point in time in order to generate her ult, her full health mech back by just letting the bomb explode. Her ult is one of the most dangerous parts of her kit and should be respected. Literally nothing else about D.Va should be respected. Next up is Orisa. Orisa is what we would call a main tank. She's a bunker tank or a main tank. So this is her R1 ability. This is her primary, one of the primary components to Orisa is your shield. And your shield should always be deployed when you're playing her. You should generally want to play from behind your shield, and every time your shield comes off of cooldown, you redeploy it. As Orisa, you're able to control a large portion of the damage that your team would receive by simply moving your shield around whenever it comes off cooldown. How you create space as an Orisa player is by moving your shield carefully and using your physical body to impose anything else. So we've essentially moved where our team is safe from here all the way up to here. The next part of Orisa's kit to consider is her grab. That would be her L2. This sucks targets in at close range, and you can use this to move it into very specific abilities, like move it into an ult, move targets to or away, whatever you need. Her next ability is her L1. This is what makes her glow golden. This reduces the amount of damage you take, and it also makes you headshot immune and CC damage immune. This means you can't take any critical damage from headshots, and you are not affected by certain crowd control abilities, which includes Orisa's grab. Orisa deals a lot of damage if you hit headshots, but for the most part, at mid to long range, her spread will get the best of her. She's mostly relegated to shield break. Her ultimate ability is Supercharger, and it makes it so that all allies that are affected by this blue beam deal 50% more damage while it's active. You do a lot with her. Orisa's main strength should be to hold a specific line. Your primary objective should be to sit in a specific place. Yep. Haha. Noob.
I feel disrespected.
Your primary objective should be to find a place to set up shop and hold that line, basically using your shield as your first line of defense, and then your fortify when your shield goes down, as a way to buy time for your next shield to come back up, with grab to occasionally move targets where they need to go. For ultimate usage, I would pop her ultimate once you have a decent team fight. Reinhardt is your next tank, the very large hammerman. Reinhardt is kind of a border between a dive tank and a main tank. So Reinhardt's biggest strength is his shield. His shield, he can deploy up and down at will, as long as his shield has health. Your primary job as a Reinhardt player is to take and use your shield to move around. You have no range capabilities on this character either. Your R1 is your only source of range damage. It deals 100 damage, and it is on an 8-second cooldown. However, it does have the nice benefit of piercing through enemies and shields, which does give it good confirm power. So why would you play a close range only character with a giant shield? Well, this shield is very effective. It's very wide, it has a lot of health, and it's good for blocking shit. That's all a shield really needs. In addition to this, when your shield is down, it also recharges relatively quickly, so don't be afraid to bring it up and down in the middle of a point fight. In addition, he does a fuck ton of damage at close range. Do you like swinging people with hammers and hitting them in the face and watching them die? Well, hey, let's play Reinhardt. In addition to this, Reinhardt does have a small movement ability called Charge. Charge does a lot of damage if it makes contact. Charge also will get you killed. The general gist of how Charge works is like this. It's very hard to steer. You generally are going to use it to get into a point fight, or you're going to use it against a very close range target in order to confirm damage. Reinhardt's ultimate ability is Earth Shatter, which is essentially a stun move that hits enemies in a small cone in front of you and stuns them for 2.5 seconds. This makes them easy prey for following. The downside to Reinhardt is that you will find yourself in a lot of ranges where you'll be unable to do anything. When enemies are outside of your hammer range, when your fire strike is on cooldown, and when your shield is depleted, you're going to find yourself using your body to soak up damage, hoping your healers can heal you, or find yourself recklessly charging in order to create a play somewhere. While it's not necessarily a bad play, Reinhardt has to carefully manage his ability to dive in, deal tons of damage, and take tons of damage with his ability to back out and stay alive. Good Reinhardt players need to learn how to manage their shield usage and their hammer usage in order to be effective. And also, remember that you can't stop your charge unless you hit an object, so you can charge off the map like this. Next up would be Roadhog. Roadhog is what you would consider to be a self-sustained tank. He is an off tank. He doesn't play as a main tank, and he doesn't play as a dive tank. His primary focus is to absorb damage and to get picks. He has a very powerful close-range shotgun. If you can hit a headshot, you can kill something. At medium range, he has this, his L2 is this version of his shotgun. First off, Roadhog is limited by his very low ammo pool. He only has 5 ammo, and he can't cancel his he can't do a reload animation cancel. The main benefit to Hog is his hook. Hook is his primary way of confirming kills. Another ability that Roadhog has is his R1. This enables him to heal himself and reduce the damage he takes while healing. This is a great 1-2 combo. An easy way to confirm kills with Hog is to hook, fire, and melee. This is generally enough to kill anything except a tank. In addition, you have your heal to get out of jail free card, pretty much, and you have your ultimate ability, which is essentially just a reckless way of expending ammo. You have infinite ammo for the duration, but you can't use your hook or heal. This leaves you especially vulnerable, and it doesn't reload you either. His hook can be used for displacement like so. Hog is what you would consider to be a sniper, so to speak, as a tank. He's a shotgun sniper. His primary job is to use his hook to confirm kills. He can bully you with damage at close range, but realistically, when his hook's on cooldown, you're not particularly scared of him. All he does is he's like a cockroach. He has good ways of keeping himself alive. Our next tank would be Sigma. Sigma is another main tank, although he does do a large amount of damage for a quote-unquote main tank. Sigma's primary method of attack is going to be the bouncing balls of doom. These little balls that he can bounce. The thing to note with these balls of doom is they have a very specific range limit on them. They have 20 meters. Outside of 20 meters, these balls do no damage. In addition, these balls also do not have to be reloaded. This means he has a steady source of damage for the most part. He can two-shot anything that's not a tank. And because of their ability to bounce, he can ricochet them quite easily. Sigma, however, plays around the concept of personal shielding a lot right now. See, Sigma has 2 types of shields he can use. The first is this large deployable shield that blocks a good amount of damage. You recall it, and it goes on a 2-second cooldown. That's fine and dandy. So, he's generally going to be more vulnerable when his shield is up. However, unlike Reinhardt, he can shoot through it and recall it to recharge it whenever he needs. He also has a personal shield. This personal shield enables him to suck up damage and absorb any of the damage he takes as extra body armor. You also have your Rock, which is a long-range stun ability. It's actually the only way you can deal damage at long range in certain cases. For example, if I want to deal damage over here, I have to arc my Rock to do it. My primary fire will not hit. Sigma needs to carefully manage his 2 main cooldowns, which would be his shield and his sucky suck. Managing these 2 cooldowns effectively enables you to block most any damage as long as you're properly alternating. His Rock gives him good confirmation on being able to stun people. Oftentimes, Roadhog and Sigma are an interesting matchup. Sigma counters Hog's heal with his Rock, and Hog counters Sigma's sucky suck with his hook. So it generally becomes a matchup of who uses which ability first. Your sucky suck is another good ability, but you shouldn't be using it behind shields or anything like that. You also have to be careful not to blow your shield cooldown when you need it. Your ultimate ability grants you the ability to fly and allows you to grab multiple enemies at a time, pick them up in the air, and slam them down for damage. During this time, they're vulnerable to being shot from other sources. It's a good way to it's a good form of crowd control, but if you miss, you're not going to do a lot. Sigma is one of the strongest tanks in the game because he has a good constant DPS output, and he has consistent ways to defend himself. So he's a good starting level option. Just remember to balance your cooldowns. Next up is Winston. Winston is a dive tank. He does have some main tank abilities, but he is primarily a dive tank. Winston's first ability to mention is his L1, which is his leap ability. This enables him to jump in and do damage in a small radius around him. Winston has a very short-range, full frontal cone. It deals a lot of damage, but there's no real aiming required, and when you run out of ammo, you're kind of screwed. The only other way you can attack is to melee. Winston without cooldowns is pretty much worthless as well. Winston's primary asset is to just jump in, do damage. Your R1 ability is a Dome Shield. Your Dome Shield here blocks damage in a decent area. The thing to understand with Winston is that your Dome Shield is also the range of your primary fire. This means anyone that enters your Dome Shield is entering a death zone. The only downside to your Dome Shield is you have to carefully manage how you're going to handle your abilities. A good Winston player does not leap in and then throw shield. You want to use either one or the other, but not both. This enables you to have one tool in order to escape with. His ultimate ability just basically gives him a lot of extra health, and instead of being able to fire, he now juggles people. What this means is that he can now use his melee ability to its full extent and knock them back and deal damage. Primarily, you're going to use Winston's ult in two situations. You're going to use it as a way to knock enemies back, or you're going to use it when you're low on health in order to basically give yourself an extra health bar. It gives you 1,000 health, which is double your normal pool. Winston plays sort of like D.Va, but with stronger defensive abilities and weaker offensive abilities. He has good mobility for getting in and out, and he has a good shield for being able to defend his team and get out if need be. The only real downside with Winston is the lack of damage options he has at his disposal. Whenever a target's not in range, he's pretty much worthless. Next up we have Wrecking Ball, who in my opinion is one of the two hardest tanks in the game to play. Wrecking Ball is a flank tank. He's a dive tank, just like D.Va and Reinhardt are. Reinhardt, yeah, I'm stupid, and Winston. The difference with Ball is how he plays. Ball has two primary forms you need to manage. His Ball form, where his grapple and pyro driver are most deadly, and his normal form, where he can access his machine guns. His machine guns are alright. At long range, the spread causes them to be ineffective, but at close range, they do good enough. At close range, you're going to be putting at such a high rate of fire, it doesn't really matter. You'll kill pretty much anything in front of you. Ball, however, is not played as a mini D.Va. If you want close-range machine guns, play D.Va. Ball is played for his Ball form. While in Ball form, Ball cannot attack, but he does move faster, and he has physics to him. He can roll. In addition to this, he has his L2 ability, which is his grappling hook. His grappling hook needs to be shot onto a solid object. When it is, you need to hold the button down. As soon as you release it, it goes on cooldown. Now, you can control his movement with the joysticks. This enables you as a Ball player to now do some crazy, ridiculous shit like spinning like this. When you are glowing orange like this, you move faster, and enemies that come into contact with you will take damage. In addition, you also gain Pile Driver. This is activated whenever you're in the air, is that little slam down move. It deals a set amount of damage and knocks opponents up. A quick move as well for getting around the map quickly as Wrecking Ball is what's called a rollout. If you use your grappling hook and roll without getting any air time, you glow orange and form this rollout. When you do contact with enemies, it knocks them back and deals damage. I fucked that up. Hold on. And I fucked that up too. Whatever. His adaptive shield is his R1 ability. You generate more shields the more enemies that are nearby. Although they do generate ult charge off of shooting your shields. So think of it like an extension of your health bar. He also has his ultimate ability, Minefield. This can be deployed at any time while you're in ball form. This means you can use it on the ground level for a very close range minefield, or you can use it in air to do a much larger radius minefield like this. This is a large area denial ability that will damage enemies when they run into the mines. They have to shoot these mines or use something like a shield to clear them. The mines themselves don't do a particularly large amount of damage, but they do enough damage where these bots right here are killing themselves just running into them. Ball requires the most tactical experience to know how to play. You can very well often save yourself from ridiculous situations if you know how to control your swings as ball. The only downside is knowing when not to feed. Ball players need to be able to get into ball form and get out very quickly. You can heal yourself similar to Roadhog by just getting out of combat and finding health packs to heal yourself with. And also knowing good pile driver spots is another key advantage as well. You also reload after a certain amount of time in ball form, which makes reloading useless. You should just stay in ball form with him. He's a very tactical character in understanding how to get in and get out. Our last tank is probably the hardest to play, is Zarya. Zarya is an interesting tank. She has the highest damage output of the entire tank category, but only if she uses her primary abilities properly. Your two abilities, your L1 and your R1, enable you to activate shields. Your R1 is a shield that you deploy on someone else that prevents 200 damage. Your L1 is a shield you deploy on yourself that also prevents 200 damage. The more damage your shields take, the more it powers up your main weapon. Your primary weapon deals more damage the more charge you have, which is generated by the amount of damage your shields take. Your alternate fire is just this medium-range grenade launcher. You can hit it at long range, you just gotta arc it right. It has a small amount of knockback to it as well. Zarya's beam right now is pretty pitiful, but that's also because I don't have any charge. At full charge, she becomes one of the most dangerous tanks in the game. Anything in her range pretty much just dies. The issue is this is her range. Not very impressive. Zarya's ultimate is Graviton Surge. It's basically a Orisa grab that sucks in a lot of enemies into close range and prevents them from escaping. Orisa's bubbles can save teammates. They're destroyed whenever you take 200 damage. So as long as you throw the bubbles at the right time on yourself or an ally, excuse me, you can survive almost any ultimate ability in the game for the most part. Zarya, however, requires very important cooldown management, very similar to Sigma, but at a lot less forgiving on it. Onto the damages, we have Ashe. Ashe is a mid to long range damage character that excels in eliminations and generic damage. Her primary fire is a hip-fire hunting rifle. It does good damage if you can aim your shot. There's no spread, and the recoil is manageable. At mid to long range, you also have your sniper option right here. This is the headshot capable weapon that with a damage boost becomes an incredibly effective sniping tool. This enables her to two-shot most characters that are not tanks. The slower rate of fire is the only noticeable impact of this weapon. She does reload one bullet at a time, so you do need to carefully manage how you use your ability. If you hit fire rapidly and then reload, you can cancel this by then pressing the fire or the ADS button. Ashe's next ability is her Dynamite, which is her R1 ability. Her R1 can be detonated on its own, which causes an area of effect damage over time. This burns through enemies and shields. She can deal damage to herself, however. The next way to use Dynamite would be to shoot it. If you shoot Dynamite, it triggers a large blast radius in addition to its damage over time effect, although the damage over time effect is reduced to compensate for the blast. The last way of triggering Dynamite is by using your other ability, your Coach Gun, or your L1. This is a knockback that knocks you back, and it knocks your enemies back. This is used for mobility, and can also be used to instantly trigger Dynamite as well. A good 1-2 combo at close range is to activate your coach gun on the dynamite. Ashe is capable of doing a lot of damage at pretty much any range if you can hit your shots. The only thing you have to really worry about is running out of ammo. Her ultimate ability is Bob. When you press the ultimate button, in the direction you're looking is where you will control a giant large character to come running out and kill shit for you. Don't aim it off the map. It will die. Bob comes out, knocks enemies up, and auto-aims and does a lot of damage into them. Bob is very powerful. And just like that, Bob is gone. Your primary goal when playing Ashe should be to focus on using your dynamite to soften up shields and tanks, and using your superior long-range abilities, such as your sniping tools, in order to form up ult charge for Bob. Bob is a game changer in most situations. If your team doesn't have crowd control to eliminate him, you win. Bastion is next. Bastion is the low-tier king. A lot of players will play Bastion when they don't feel like playing anything else. Bastion is all about his forms. Realistically, all of Bastion's abilities are just simply forms. The only other ability he has is his L2 ability, which lets him heal himself. A small meter will come up on the side of the screen, just like D.Va's defense matrix, and enable you to heal yourself. It will only be consumed based off of the amount of health you heal. And as soon as you leave combat, you will regenerate that. It's not a great ability, but it does enable you to keep yourself alive. Bastion has two primary forms. His first is the form that allows him to move. This is called Recon. This is a weapon. This is a mode which has a 35 magazine weapon and has a decent amount of spread to it, although it does have headshot damage. Your next mode you activate by pressing L1, which is turret mode. This puts you in turret mode, which lets you just mow down a hail of gunfire. Hell hath no fury like a Bastion scorned. A neat trick with Bastion is that switching your modes and firing at least 4 bullets in the next mode will automatically reload your weapon. It's actually faster to do it this way and not lose DPS than it is to do it the other way. Bastion's last mode is his ultimate ability, Tank Mode. This enables him to move around the map at a slightly faster rate than normal and lob explosive shells. These explosive shells do a lot of damage. Bastion's primary weakness is his immobility. See, Bastion in this mode is incredibly weak. You're better off playing other hip-fire, automatic fire champions. Bastion in this mode is incredibly powerful. He does a lot of fucking damage. But he can't move and is incredibly susceptible to flankers. This means you generally need a team comp that's going to be based around protecting a Bastion player. This is going to be one that's usually better on defense. On offense, you're going to run something called Pirate Ship, where you get on the objective and don't ever move from it, pretty much. The next character is Doomfist. Doomfist does not have a gun, so to speak. He has his R2 are indicated by those 4 charges on your screen. Are these small shotgun blasts. They do a decent amount of damage and recharge over time, but when they're fully depleted, you can't use them anymore. You have to wait for them to recharge. Doomfist plays like a fighting game character. He's all about combos. Your 3 primary abilities all generate armor for you and personal shielding. This is great, but you need to know how to use your abilities. First, let's start with what they are. Your L2 ability is this punch. When you make contact with an enemy, if you knock them into a wall, it deals a lot more damage. It's pretty much an insta-kill. Your R1 is Seismic Slam. This is a knock-up ability that does more damage the more height you fall from. Your L1 ability is your uppercut, which knocks an enemy up into the air with you. Notice the blue health bar on your screen. That's your extra health gained. A good Doomfist player combos these abilities by chaining them. You should always use your R1 or your L1 as an engagement. Your primary fire in between, and save your punch to either finish or get out. Doomfist has 2 main issues. He has no range outside of his poke on his R2, or by burning a movement ability to get in or out. If you don't have a movement ability to get out, you've kind of fucked yourself. Being able to easily chain together like this is what makes Doomfist Doomfist. That is very powerful, but it's all about proper cooldown management. You should find a combo system that works best for you. He's able to also very rapidly change positions. His ultimate ability is Meteor Strike, which deals a lot of damage the more enemies he hits, but can also be used as a good escape tool. Doomfist is the type of character that requires a lot of skill to play, and is most effective when he's able to dash freely. The more crowd control there is, the harder he's going to be to play. Next up is Echo. Echo is primarily a burst damage character. Her primary fire is this tri-burst long-range shotgun. It deals a good amount of damage and is a good amount of damage, although is limited by a slightly smaller ammo pool. Her next ability are these sticky grenades. They stick to an enemy and explode, dealing a decent amount of damage. Last up is her focusing laser. This laser is purple whenever it's on a target that is below 50% HP, and it does double damage accordingly. The primary wombo combo on her is to use your bursting along with your sticky grenades in order to get large targets weak enough to where you can use your focusing beam on them. She has very good damage no matter the range. She is able to very effectively just burst damage with these main core abilities. Her primary fire, her sticky grenades, into focusing beam. Her L1 is a flight-based movement ability that enables you to have pretty much unlimited flight control. The only downside to her is that she can't maintain it for very long. Her ultimate ability turns her into another character and allows them to generate their ult very quickly.
I'm going whole hog.
When she comes out, she's at a certain health threshold. Basically, you want to use your ult to turn into another tank as opposed to another DPS or support unless you just need it to save yourself. Echo is very good against squishy targets because she can pretty much kill them. But against a high HP target like Roadhog, I can melt him in just a few seconds.
Changing position.
Echo is very strong for burst damage and for consistent damage output, but she doesn't have anything that makes her very dangerous. And if you outrange her, she's pretty much worthless. Genji is the first of our flank characters. The first thing you need to understand with Genji is that he is designed to be a flank character. He has the ability to climb walls by holding X on a wall, and he has a double jump by base value. This gives him superior mobility and allows him to get to places that other characters could not get to without burning flight.
Hello.
Genji's primary ability is these shurikens. They don't deal a great amount of damage unless you're hitting headshots. His L2 ability is a fan pattern on them. These fire a lot faster, and at close range, these do more damage. Primarily, you should not be spamming into barriers and such as Genji, but whatever floats your boat. Genji should primarily be trying to generate his ultimate ability. His R1 ability is Reflect. This enables you to reflect damage that you would receive back onto your attackers. Genji's next ability is his dash. Every time you get an elimination, the cooldown on your dash resets. This enables you to very easily eliminate targets and dash around.
Double kill. Double kill.
See? Dash. Lots of dashing. Genji good at dashing. Genji's ultimate ability is the primary reason you play him. When you activate your ult, it resets the cooldown on your dash. You do a metric fuck ton of damage. Although the last second of his ultimate ability, you will get locked out. It basically turns you into a melee warrior with a giant blade to kill everything. Genji's problem is that realistically, he only works if you're good with him. His deflect can buy him some time to escape, but it's not a get-out-jail-free card. It realistically only counters characters like Bastion, soldiers, characters that just like to hold down a fire button for a long period of time. Genji's dash is a great tool for getting around, and because it does have vertical mobility, can enable you to access other heights very quickly as well. The problem with Genji is that his primary fire doesn't do a lot of damage. He has to work with the rest of his team that is engaging in order to get value out of him. And primarily, he only gets kills off his ultimate. Our next character is going to be Hanzo. Hanzo is a long-range character. He's primarily used for sniper duty, but can also be used to break shields pretty effectively. Hanzo's primary fire is a drawback bow. Body shots are very damaging. They two-shot most characters. Headshots are one-shots.
Double kill. Triple kill. Quadruple kill. Quintuple kill. Sextuple kill.
Yes. Hanzo also has access to the same wall climb ability that Genji does. And a double jump ability. His sonic arrow enables him to reveal multiple enemies through walls. It's just tacked onto a regular shot. His storm arrow is an ability that allows him to rapidly fire multiple arrows at a time by queuing them up, at slightly less damage. It's basically a way to machine gun any target that gets close range to you. And his ultimate ability is a giant dragon that goes through walls. This will travel across the length of the map and deal damage to any enemy that it comes into contact with. Hanzo's main weakness is his aim. If you can't aim, you cannot play Hanzo. Now, that's to say you don't have to hit headshots every single time. Although it is heavily encouraged. Hanzo is not a flick aim character, so to speak, but you can do it. Hanzo works best circle strafing as well. He's also a character that works very well as a spam choke kind of character. Just being able to spam a single point with a lot of damage. His arrows, however, are very precise. If you're not hitting the shots with the arrows, you should probably switch to somebody else. Next up is Junkrat. Junkrat is a mid to long range spam-based explosive character. His primary ability is these bouncing grenades. They bounce after a short duration, do a large amount of damage, do a ton of damage to shields. They're very good for breaking shields, and he can't be damaged by them. His primary function is just to sit in the back and break shields and kind of just generate ult charge. His shields are his grenades are very inaccurate, and while they do deal a lot of damage, they don't have a very large blast radius on them. So you're primarily just going to be spamming them into a choke where you know an enemy has to come through. His L1 ability is triggered with L2. This is a concussive grenade that deals a decent amount of damage. You can also use it to pop yourself to high places. Like that. Junkrat's R1 ability is the Steel Trap. Throwing this Steel Trap will cause enemies that get stuck in it to, well, get hit. They get stuck in it, they will stay in there. Like that. He can burst damage very quickly by using this concussive grenade primary fire blast combo. The main reason you play Junkrat is for his Riptide. This gives you a remote controllable car that you can then basically detonate. And it does a very large amount of damage. Junkrat, however, is primarily just a range spam-based character that just farms ult charge, similar to Genji, but being longer range. McCree is a good all-purpose general damage. He uses a revolver, but it's effective at pretty much any range and can score eliminations pretty well. If you can hit headshots, he becomes lethal. He's a two-shot menace if you can hit your headshots. At close range, he has his Fan the Hammer. This unloads all the remaining bullets that are in his magazine, but with tremendous amounts of recoil. This is a very low-tier way to confirm kills because you just walk up and kill anything. It's primarily used for shield break or large immobilized targets. Speaking of immobilized, Flashbang. This is an ability that will stun an enemy for about a second and a half and prevents them from doing anything, making them perfect target for Fan the Hammer. Another interesting ability he has is his dodge roll. Notice how I have 1 ammo. By pressing dodge roll, I automatically reload and move in the direction I'm going. McCree, however, doesn't have any mobility outside of this dodge roll. You're mostly going to be using the dodge roll for the reset. Because he deals solid, consistent damage at pretty much any range, and it gets even better if you hit headshots, he's a pretty consistent source of damage. His ultimate ability is Deadeye. Basically, once you see the skull appear on the enemy's heads, press fire and it automatically kills any enemy there. It also reloads your gun whenever you activate it, as long as you don't fire it. So if you activate your ult and cancel it. The downsides to McCree is his overall lack of mobility or utility. He primarily is just flashbang and shoot. Those are the only things he's really good for. His ult is hard to get kills with as well. It's mostly a zoning tool, keeping enemies from sticking their heads out where they shouldn't. Next up we have Mei. Mei is a relatively low damage character that has other benefits. She's essentially a mini tank. The first thing is her primary fire. This is a relatively low damage beam that over time will freeze an enemy in place if they don't die from the beam. This immobilizes them long enough for you to use your Icicle Launcher, which is your L2 ability. This consumes the same ammo that your Freeze does, but has a long range and is headshot capable. This makes it very capable for you to deal tons of strategy on Mei is to freeze a target and then immediately headshot them. This kills pretty much anything you could think of. She has a surprising amount of damage if you know how to aim for headshots. Basically, if you're good with headshot-based characters, you can get a lot of value out of Mei, only with a close-range freeze option. Mei has access to her R1 ability, which is a giant wall. It's a deployable that you can control how to build and destroy at will. Once it takes a certain amount of damage, it will be destroyed, however, but it's good for buying your team some time. She also has the ability to heal herself and become completely damage and CC immune with her L1 ability. She'll also heal and reload ammo. Her ultimate is this giant snowball. It's basically her primary fire in a large area of effect. This enables you to set up the opposing team for a situation that they can't avoid. Mei can deal a lot of damage at any range because she has constant close range damage and long range sniping pressure. The downside to Mei is that realistically, she doesn't do a lot of damage if she can't hit those icicle shots. She's limited by the range of her primary fire, and it doesn't do a lot of damage on its own. Her wall can also be used to cockblock your teammates in some pretty interesting ways, so just be careful in how you use it. Next up is Pharah. Pharah is the main aerial character in the game, Echo notwithstanding. You control your flight by pressing L2. Your L2 enables you to fly in the air as long as you hold the button down, although you can't really fly for very long. Her primary fire is a projectile-based rocket launcher that, like Junkrat, deals a large amount of damage. Your R1 is a thruster that immediately gives you access to the sky, which you can then feather out your booster on in order to stay in air for long periods of time. The main issue with Pharah comes from being able to aim and fly at the same time. It's a very careful skill you're going to have to learn to manage on her. In addition to that, her rockets don't have a particularly large area of effect, meaning she's mostly a shield break-based character in the vein of a Junkrat. Most Pharahs also generally tend to die when they're on the ground. Her R1 ability is a concussive mine. This can knock back you or enemies in a relatively large radius. Her ultimate ability is Barrage. This gives her the ability to just fire off a large amount of rockets. The problem is you generally, because you have to stand still to do it, you're generally going to die. And you're generally going to be in the air when you do this. And there's generally going to be a hit scan character that's going to end you. Pharah has a lot of weaknesses, unfortunately. She does have a decent kit to work with, being that she's basically an aerial version of Junkrat. The only real disadvantage to this is that she's an aerial-based version of Junkrat. If you can't learn the flight controls with her either, you're going to find yourself in situations a lot of times where you're going to accidentally kill yourself. Just remember that Pharah has a very high skill gap. She actually takes more aim learning how to aim her projectiles than certain sniper-based characters. Next up is Reaper. Reaper is a close-range shotgun character. You would expect him to be a flanking-based character, but realistically, he can't flank. Let me show you why. The first and most important asset to Reaper is his dual-wield shotguns. They do a lot of damage at close range. Do you like melting things at close range? Yes. Do you like healing from the guns that you shoot? Yes. Well, you like Reaper then. Reaper has one small problem. He takes a lot of damage. While he deals a lot of damage and heals off the damage he deals, Reaper generally tends to get overwhelmed by close range damage. You cannot take on a 1v4 and expect to come out on top. You just can't do it. You're gonna die. Now, Reaper does have two mobility options, but very similar to McCree, is actually relatively low mobility. The first is your teleport ability. This enables you to teleport to relatively high places. It does have a wind-up time, and you are not crowd control or damage immune for the duration of them. This should be your primary way of engaging. Your ghost form here, your wraith form, makes you damage and CC immune while in it. It also reloads. The problem with wraith form is you can't use it to engage, otherwise you have no way to get out. In the middle of a tense fight, you cannot get your teleporter to work and teleport you out. You have to use your wraith form to get out. Reaper is similar to Genji in that he primarily is just here to farm up ult charge. Once you press the ultimate button, everything in a very circular shape around you tends to die. A lot. And you do also heal off of that. Reaper is very good for countering tanks or just being up close and personal, regardless of the DPS. However, he does have certain counters. For example, a Hanzo Storm Arrow or a Echo Sticky Grenade is enough to make you retreat or burn your Wraith form. And when your Wraith form is on cooldown, you're pretty much a sitting duck. You have no get out of jail free card. Soldier is your standard Call of Duty character. Most would expect him to be a run and gun type character, and that's what he is. His L1 ability is a sprint ability. You don't have to hold it, it's a toggle. Remember that. Your primary fire is a recoil-controlled assault rifle. It does a decent amount of damage, and is good at pretty much any range as long as you can control the recoil. Your L2 is a rocket launcher on a cooldown. Does pretty good damage, pretty good blast radius, although you can't kill yourself. And your R1 ability is your healing station, which heals you and any allies that are in this small circle. Good way to keep yourself alive, and if you have a bad support. He does hit headshots at a decent rate as well, if you can control your recoil, so just remember that. His primary ability is auto-aim. I'm not kidding, it's literally auto-aim. You do have to reload while in it, but you just hold down the trigger and whatever is on screen dies. Soldier doesn't particularly excel at anything. He gets dominated at close range by close range characters like Reaper. He gets dominated at long range characters by Hanzo and Widow. Then he can pretty much lose mid-range fights to McCree and Ashe as well, because they have ways of working around him. Believe it or not, his best asset is his healing station. You can temporarily keep you and your teammates alive through somewhat tough team fights, as long as you activate it early. He's an overall solid, consistent source of damage that has some flanking capabilities. All in all, though, you are generally at the reload of your mercy. If you sprint when you need to reload, you'll find yourself having to reload at the end of your sprint, or just re-sprinting again. Sombra is a relatively difficult character to learn. She's generally regarded as a low DPS character that is primarily used for one ability. She has an interesting gameplay loop. Sombra's first ability that I want to mention is her teleporter. Throw it down, and it stays there until you either destroy it or teleport to it. Should you, say, fall off the map, you can teleport back on. However, it will then go on cooldown. It can also be destroyed by enemies if they find it. Don't let that happen. Her next ability is her invisibility. It takes her a few seconds to go invisible, but when she does, she moves 50% faster and can't be detected by enemies unless she gets too close to them or if she takes damage. If she takes damage, she gets revealed. Sombra can cancel her invisibility by either firing or hacking. When she hacks, it knocks her out of invisibility, but it also prevents the opposing player who is hacked from doing anything except using their primary fire. This is incredibly valuable. Her primary fire is actually pretty good. Her primary fire does about the same damage of a soldier. However, it is a spread-based weapon and doesn't have a great amount of range to it. In most cases, you're going to be tickling your enemies. This enables you to generate your EMP. Think of this as hack, but on a very large radius.
Translocating.
Sombra's gameplay loop is kind of like a pseudo flanker and shutdown. She's capable of flanking to areas that other characters might not be able to access, and she also has the capability to hack targets and shut them down entirely, basically relegating them to whatever their primary fire is. For certain characters like Reinhardt, this can absolutely debilitate them. For certain characters like Soldier, this is nothing but a sweat to them. Sombra oftentimes causes your team to lack DPS, so her damage is based almost entirely off of your ability to hack targets successfully. If you don't hack the right targets, you basically don't get any value out of her. Next up is Symmetra. Symmetra is another spam-based character that's mostly used for countering tanks or for cutting off choke points. Her first ability to talk about is her microwave beam. The longer this beam is held down on an enemy, the more damage it does. This bonus will stay even when you reload. It also consumes no damage when you shoot shields. Her alternate fire is a longer range version that deals a large amount of damage as well. This can be very rapidly spammed as well, although for less damage. She has an L1 ability, which are her little sentry turrets. These turrets slow and damage enemies, and they're auto-aim. They just lock on and melt a target. These are an incredibly powerful way to deal damage to an enemy. They just lock onto a target and kill them. Your R1 ability is this teleporter right here.
My teleporter is online.
Set it up, and you can teleport teammates wherever you want to. They have to interact with it, though. You can also use this as a way to create what is called a teleporter bomb by sending all of your teleporters, all of your sentry turrets through the teleporter to auto-aim. This is an effective way of surprising damage into an enemy backline, although it does waste a significant amount of cooldowns. Your ultimate ability is this giant wall. Enemies cannot fire damage through this wall. It basically creates a large wall through the map that enemies can walk through, but they can't damage. Although with enough damage, it can be broken, actually. Symmetra is primarily an anti-shield based character that just does annoying things. She moves the team around for meme comps like teleport flanks, and she's able to do enough damage to annoy the enemy team into oblivion. Torbjorn is a main DPS character. His primary goal is just to do fucking damage. That's it. Your first ability to mention is your L1, which is this auto-aim turret right here. It goes around automatically firing. You do have a hammer you can access. This hammer will heal your turret if it takes damage. It also can be used as a melee weapon, although generally you're not going to be in melee range for it. His primary fire is this pea shooter right here. It actually does a decent amount of damage, especially if you can hit your headshots. You also have a shotgun version of this gun as well. Your R1 is your overload ability, which causes you to shoot faster, move faster, reload faster, and you get an extra 100 health. It basically makes you overall better. Your turret can be destroyed though. Your ultimate ability is Molten Core, which is basically an area of effect denial. This lingering pool will sit on the ground and continuously damage enemies and apply a small damage over time once they leave it. It's a good way to kill enemies and basically lock off a certain zone. He has no utility in terms of mobility, crowd control, or anything of the matter. All he does is deal damage. If you like a character that deals a large amount of damage but can't do anything else, Torbjorn's a good character for you. Next up we have Tracer. This is another flank-based character similar to Genji. Her L1 and her L2 are both these little dashes right here. She has a very high rate of fire, high spread, close range weapon, and very low health. She has fast movement speed, and she can blink around the map like a madwoman. And they're directional based, not based off where you're looking. If your left analog stick is moving left, you're going to teleport left, even if you're looking right. You also can't hold down the button and expect them to go. You have to press them individually every time. Your R1 ability is the recall, which will bring you back a few seconds in time and also reload you and heal you. Your primary goal with her is to just generate your ult, stick it onto a target, and watch them go big boom. It's a relatively small high-grade explosive. She's primarily a backline flank-based character. Her kit consists of shooting, dashing, and dashing. Shoot, dash. You do need to manage your blinks properly though, or you can and will kill yourself. Although you can recall yourself back in time. The next character that we have is Widowmaker.
One shot.
Excuse me.
One shot.
Widowmaker is a long-range sniper-based character, and she is in fact the designated sniper in the game. She cannot quickscope, however. She has to hardscope. She has a charge-based sniper rifle. The amount of damage that you deal is based off of how long it was charged. A fully charged headshot will kill just about anything. Her primary fire is also a standard spread-based hip-fire AR. It's pretty good. It does decent damage at mid-range and can bail you out in some situations. But it uses the same ammo that your sniper does. Which means if you get jumped at close range with only 1 or 2 sniper rounds, you're not doing much. What makes her such an appealing sniper is her grappling hook to get up to high elevations, which she can also use her primary and alternate fire out of. And her Venom Mine, which gives her area of effect control. She can basically use this as a way to trigger enemies. It deals damage over time, and lets you know when they've been hit. Her ultimate ability basically lets you see where all the enemies are on the map, you and the rest of your team. This is not really great, it's an ability you can kind of afford to waste. The only downside to Widowmaker is pretty much any missed shot in your sniper form will pretty much kill you. If you're playing Widowmaker and you miss a single shot, you're kind of fucked. Her grappling hook does give her decent mobility, but realistically, you're only as good as your aim with her. Think of her like Hanzo with a scope. Lastly, we have the supports. Most of the supports in this game have another job to do besides healing, so don't just think your primary job is to heal. However, healing should be a factor. We have Ana. Ana is a healing-based sniper. Shooting allies will cause them to be healed. Shooting enemies will cause them to be damaged. This is a very simple solution. Your L2 is a sniper ability. This essentially just gives you better accuracy. It doesn't realistically do much. You also have your R1 grenade. This does a small burst heal. It also causes their health bars to glow yellow, which means they take more healing from all sources. Which means your other healer, who should be doing their job. If you throw it on enemies, it does a small burst of damage while also turning them purple. This means they cannot be healed by any source while purple. This is a good way of effectively shutting down what the enemy team is trying to heal. Your L1 is your sleep dart. This effectively knocks an opposing character out of commission for a few seconds or until they take damage, which wakes them up. Your L1 should primarily be used to knock opponents out of their longer cooldowns or crowd control abilities. Your healing grenade can be used for you, or you can use it offensively to deny healing. Your triangle is nano boost. This causes the target that you hit it with to take less damage and deal more damage. It's a useful ability to pair onto a target that on your team that's about to go in and engage. Ana unfortunately doesn't have very many defenses at close range. Most Ana players have to decide if they're either going to heal or be damaged. Healing Anas generally tend to blow their healing grenades on large targets like tanks, and use their primary fire on smaller targets like supports and damages. This means, however, when you get jumped, your L1 is going to be your only way to defend yourself. This is a common problem that Ana players have. If you save your grenade for the damage capabilities that it has, then you're limiting the amount of healing you can do to your team by half, no matter how good you are. If you save your sleep dart just for when you get jumped, you won't be able to shut down larger, more dangerous abilities. Ana has the hardest requirement because she has more cooldown management to balance than most of the other supports in this game do. She has the absolute hardest cooldown management. You also have to decide whether you want to use the slightly slower sniper mode, or if you want to use your hip fire. Personally, I prefer the hip fire, but then again, I don't get gold healing. Baptiste is next. Baptiste is a combat medic. His primary fire is a 3-round burst assault rifle. It does a decent amount of damage at pretty much any range, and as long as you can control the recoil, it does a decent amount of damage. Especially on headshot, it gets even better. His alternate fire are these healing grenades. On a direct hit, they do a decent amount of healing, and they have a small area of effect explosion, so you don't have to be accurate with it. His L1 is a primary healing ability as well, although it heals you more than it does your allies. This regenerative burst heals all enemies within line of sight to you for a small duration over a small amount of time. Remember, it heals you for more than it heals your allies. Your slightly less than mortality field should best be deployed behind objects. This is a throwable object that causes anyone within this circle to not drop below a certain threshold. This enables you to heal them up very easily afterwards. Next up, you have your amplification matrix. This is your ultimate ability. When you deploy this, it creates a large zone in which any healing that is shot through it, or any damage that is shot through it, is doubled. But only through this small window. It does work two ways. There are many situations. First off, your R1 should primarily be used to shut down large ultimate abilities if you can protect it. However, it does require line of sight. If you throw it behind the pillar, someone who is standing right here is not going to be protected by it. It also can be shot and destroyed, and targets will be low health after it. While you can do a lot of healing, you need to hit your shots, at least in the general vicinity. This means you need to have line of sight. And while you do a decent amount of damage, your primary focus should not be healing. Or should not be damage, it should be healing. Your burst heal is best used to heal yourself rather than your teammates. You can heal your teammates pretty effectively if you can hit your shots. It should mostly be used to just throw on them if they need a little bit extra healing. Remember, it's a line of sight heal as well. Your amplification matrix can be generated so fast, you can pretty much throw it willy-nilly as well. Although you need to save your immortality. Brigitte is a close-range melee-based healer. She is an incredibly powerful healer, but only at close range. Her only ranged ability is her whip shot. This applies a knockback and triggers her healing. Brigitte doesn't have any real form of healing. She has these small R1 health packs that you throw onto an ally, and they heal a small amount of health. Her primary heal is her passive Inspire. This is triggered anytime you use a melee, hit someone with a melee, a shield bash, or a whip shot. It triggers a small pulsating yellow healing ring on the ground called Inspire. This heals per second all allies within it. It actually can do a decent amount of healing. She has a small shield. It is worthless. It is only used for shield bashing, which is an incredibly effective way to basically say fuck you to whatever was standing in front of you. Was a Roadhog trying to heal in front of you? I'm sorry, I have a shield bash off cooldown. You kind of forgot about that. Her ultimate ability is called Rally. Rally increases her Inspire healing, the damage she deals, her damage speed, her movement speed, and passively heals allies and gives them an extra 100 health whenever they are near her. It's a very powerful ability for engaging in fights, but it only works while Brig is alive, which means if you die, well, so does the rest of your team. Brig suffers from being a close-range only healer. She can use Shield Bash at close distance, and she has Whip Shot for dealing damage at range, but outside of these singular few abilities, she pretty much gets killed. You have to be able to run a team comp that best suits her ability to get in close. Next up is Lucio. Lucio is the definition of a support, a non-healing support. He heals, but he heals in a large radius over time. See this little radius on the bottom of your screen? That is the range at which Lucio is able to hit his teammates. He is passively healing every time. Now, he is passively speed boosting. Your L1 switches between your speed and heal forms. Speeding and healing and learning how to manage when you should be in which form is an incredibly important component to playing Lucio. Your primary fire is a 4-round burst ability. It deals a decent amount of damage. Don't be surprised if you get killed by a Reddit Lucio. Lucio is most known for his boop ability. This is a knockback. It is primarily used to knock people off of the map. It is incredibly annoying, and most of maps that have death ledges will feature a Lucio in them. His R1 ability is called Amp It Up. This increases the amount of healing per second that he gives the rest of his team. It's the closest thing to a burst heal that he has, but it doesn't last long. This can be used in speed form as well. If you amp it up in speed form, it increases the speed bonus as well. One of the reasons why Lucio is relatively hard to work with is because he doesn't really heal his team. You're sacrificing healing potential for speed boost, which means if you're not effectively speed boosting your team in fights, you're not getting any value out of Lucio. He does have a nice wall riding feature. By holding X on walls, you can wall ride. And you can jump off with them and pretty much traverse the map pretty well, as long as you can learn to control it. This enables Lucio to do some really suicidal stunt-type plays with his boop. His ultimate ability is Sound Barrier. This provides a very large, temporary personal shield to every ally within line of sight that will immediately begin deteriorating. It's a good way to avoid ultimate abilities. Lucio is a relatively hard healer to work into a team comp. If you're just spending the whole game speed boosting, you're putting too much pressure on your second support to keep the rest of your team alive. If you spend the whole game in heal form, you're not getting the most out of Lucio's kit, and you'd be better off playing another character. His relatively short healing range and his low healing output means the rest of his kit becomes very important. He has high survivability and cart contest with wall ride and his ability to boot people off, but you need to carefully manage when you're speed boosting in fights. Next up we have Mercy. Mercy is what we would like to call the pocket. Her primary job is to either heal or damage amp a character. Her movement ability has a relatively short cooldown, and is basically used to get in close between allies. She uses it to bounce back and forth between allies, and it's an important tool for quickly covering ground. If you need a quote-unquote taxi, you just ask a teammate. Her R2 is this healing bead. It heals one target for a very large amount. It's very hard to kill something that's actively being healed by a Mercy. Her R1 is a damage amp. This is a 30% damage increase. This makes any damage character that you throw this on much more dangerous. However, while they have the damage beam on them, you're not healing them, which means they'll die if you don't actually heal them. Her L2 ability is her Res ability. This essentially enables her to revive any fallen teammate if in range. The only downside is it gets cancelled if she dies or if she gets booped too far away and has a relatively long cooldown. Anytime a Mercy is in play, you generally need to respect her Res.
This is not the end.
She does have a pistol that she can pull out for a decent amount of damage. Pistol Mercy is a bit of a meme, but does a lot of damage. Her ultimate ability just gives her unlimited ammo and more damage, while also activating her flight. It also increases the range for her healing and damage beams, while also increasing the range on her res beam. Mercy is a very easy support to learn. There's not really a lot you have to do with Mercy to get comfortable with her. Most of what she takes is she's gonna be where you learn your target priority. Which targets do you heal first? When should you res? Who should you damage amp? Who should you heal? Etc. This makes Mercy a very good beginning character, although she does have upside in higher level games. Just don't become a Mercy one-trick. Next up we have Moira. Moira is a very self-sufficient character. She has high damage and high healing output, depending on what you do. The first thing to note is that your primary fire is a close range heal over time. It is dictated by the small bar on your screen on the right of your crosshair. This bar slowly refills over time. You can also fill this manually by dealing damage with your L2, which is a close range beam that heals you. Your R1 ability is a set of orbs. You can choose between either a damage or a healing orb, and whichever one you throw will automatically latch on and do what it's supposed to do. If you throw the healing orb, it will automatically follow allies around and heal them. If you throw the damage orb, it'll follow enemies around and damage them. This gives her a very easy way to deal damage or heal targets. However, you have to carefully manage your orb cooldowns with the rest of your abilities. Spend too much time dealing damage, and you won't be healing your team. Spend too much time healing your team, and you won't have any meter left when you actually need to heal them. Your L1 is a Fade ability. This is a short-range, controllable dash that makes you completely damage and CC immune. This is a good get-out-of-jail-free card for most ultimate abilities, and it has a short enough cooldown where you can use it pretty willy-nilly. Her ultimate ability is a large beam that both heals and damages. You can use this as a way to burst allies back up while also dealing some decent damage. Moira is an incredibly easy character to learn as long as you manage her 2 cooldowns. Our last character to cover is Zenyatta. Zenyatta is kind of a glass cannon. He's an artillery cannon, at that. He only has one form of healing, your Orb of Harmony. You just throw it on an ally and it passively heals while they're in line of sight. As soon as they leave line of sight after a second or two, it will go away. Your L1 ability is your Orb of Discord. This works like Orb of Harmony, only the enemy will take 30% more damage from all sources. And as soon as you lose line of sight with them, the orb goes away. Your primary fire is a rapid fire projectile damage ability. Your L2 is a chargeable version of this that launches a large amount of balls at an enemy. It is very good for breaking shields and killing people. Stacking your L1 onto a target then enables you to kill them that much faster. And a good Zenyatta player will generally sit in the back and spam projectiles while throwing Discord out to kill targets that much faster. Your Orb of Harmony can't do that much healing, but it's enough to heal one player up at a time. This will then power up your ultimate ability, Transcendence. This allows you to move 2.5 times faster while also dealing a very large chunk of healing. Basically, anything around you is not going to die. He, similar to Lucio, can't do that much healing. Although he can burst heal one target at a time, he can't sustain an entire team by himself without some practice. He's primarily played as a backup damage dealer. If you're interested in playing damage but don't want to wait for the queue time, just play Zenyatta. Anyways, this wraps it up for the video on a basic guide on how to play each character. I hope this has been informative. I didn't really explain team comps or anything, basically just how most abilities work and how they should be used. Anyways, thank you for watching, hope you